Good evening. I'm Philipp. I'm the director of the movie that we are currently watching. It's called Making of. Das ist kein Film, which translates to making of. This is not a film. And well, you see that there it says that this film was actually written and directed by Alan Smithy, which is of course a synonym for a director who is so unhappy with his work that he cannot put his real name onto the picture. Well, it's not quite that bad with me actually, of course. This was made as some kind of a postmodern commentary on filmmaking, and this entire movie is basically a postmodern commentary on independent and no budget and student filmmaking, and also about the internet cinema community and stupid YouTubers who think that they know what they're talking about. Here you see that my mom is apparently in this movie, and yes, this is of course also not true, because I'm not really Alan Smithy, and also the person playing my mom in this film is not really my mom, and so on. So yes, also I should explain why I am recording this audio commentary track in English and not in German, although this movie is primarily German, and that's because as soon as I was finished with this movie, I immediately regretted it that I made it in German and not in English, because it would fit so perfectly to the main character of this film, as you will see pretty soon. And there was also one of the most important things right now in the credits, and that is that the credits say that this movie was directed and starred by Alan Smithy, but it was actually edited by Maria Smithy, which is like my younger sister in this film, or it's the younger sister of Alan Smithy and so on. And that was kind of the primary idea, formally speaking, on the film, and that is that the shots and also the sound that you hear, so everything that's there, is in war with the editing. So whenever the image or a sound is saying one thing, the editing is supposed to say another thing. And so the whole structure of this film was supposed to be, dialectical. And now will come an extremely sloppily moved camera on a tripod with like this extremely ugly zoom. But I'm not really a big fan of this movie, but I like the visuals, and it really was a film where I tried to make every shot and every cut and every movement of the camera meaningful. So yes, at first I wanted to move the camera through the room freely, without zooms, without a tripod. Then I thought, okay, I will make it something like a Stanley Kubrick-esque shot with, extremely slow zooms. And then I thought, no, but I want to have this chaotic and ugly to some extent. And I was very much inspired, obviously, by the late films of Jean-Luc Godard. This movie is apparently dedicated to Jean-Luc Godard, although I'm not even sure about that. Maybe Alan Smithy just wanted to dedicate it to Jean-Luc Godard and so on, because he is a snobbish, cinema snob. I don't know exactly. Here, of course, we have a really metaphorical shot where the camera is like hiding the face of the director. And it was all about the identity morphing between the actual person and the filmmaking process. You can see that the laptop is actually not even working, like there's no light coming out of the screen. I hate that the curtains are not closed. I hate that we see the green out there. I think it destroys the shot. This is one of my favorite shots. I think this is a really great shot, and it's obviously inspired by the black monolith from 2001: A Space Odyssey, but it shows like LSD and so on. These shots were filmed by my actual sister Susanne Gönitzer, and well, I have to say that at this night where I filmed this particular shot in front of a television screen, I actually took half LSD dose. I had no idea how much it really was, and it took so long for it to start working that I just thought, okay, I will film it like that and you don't even see my face and so on. And then I went to sleep and thought that I'm just basically immune to LSD. And I was lying in my bed and suddenly I of course felt that something is wrong. Then I stood up, turned on the light, and was like in a very strange psychedelic place, and I heard like the water outside of my house. There's a small river, like mumbling or like playing music. It was really strange. Everything smelled differently. The next morning I was still tripping a little bit, and it was really exhausting. I went downstairs with closed eyes because I could maneuver to the house just by smelling the different atmospheres, and then I watched Werner Herzog's Fitzcarraldo for the first time, still coming down from my trip. It was beautiful and a little bit frightening. I think I was 17 and I did this the first time, and it was so strange. I listened to an audiobook of Thomas Harris' Hannibal while I was tripping, and I also made a small shot with my iPhone, and you will see this shot later on in the movie. Here now, the next shot will be a close-up of like a cup of coffee, which was obviously also inspired by Jean-Luc Godard's film 2 or 3 Things I Know About Her, where you have like this gigantic close-up of black coffee, and 2 characters are talking about the universe and capitalism and so on. Oh, okay, I was wrong. The next shot are actually those pencils, but yes, those pencils were supposed to be like a metaphor for sex, because now I'm talking about sex. Sex. There are like my strange monologues and so on. And after sex, I think I'm going. And now I'm talking about drugs, of course, and because I'm talking about drugs, I wanted to show an image that actually correlates to that, because caffeine is of course a drug, but I didn't want it to be too obvious. So yes, you just see this black hole of caffeine. I like that shot still. I think that the visuals of the movie are still interesting. What I really... Here's another sex metaphor, of course, and now we have a very, very long shot where you see like the entire day by the sun, and now you see there's a jump cut and the light is gone now, and you will see now the imitation of the sun moving outside the window, through the window into the room, by this light that just disappeared. So yes, this was actually like a logic error. So this was not planned. I just didn't realize that there would be a jump cut. I just took the light and didn't realize that people would notice that. So it's absolutely hilarious, and it's so ridiculous that I think that most people probably think that this was planned, but it absolutely wasn't. It was just too stupid to plan yes, this shot. But yeah, maybe I can explain shortly why I wanted this film to be in English so much, because what we essentially have now is that I'm speaking German and I'm like constantly switching between like an Austrian dialect and like accent free, so to speak, German, which of course doesn't really exist. but you know, I constantly switch between a heavy dialect and like common German. And this was actually intentional because I wanted to show the fakeness of the main character, because he is like something like the Patrick Bateman of influencers, at least that was the whole idea. And yeah, but I think it would have worked so much better if I just spoke like really bad English, because that would get the point across so much better than this constant switching between dialect and non-dialect. So at least you can listen to my bad English right now. And soon there will be a cut to a piece of paper where I'm writing the word fuck, fuck, fuck over and over. So yeah, it's something super juvenile and so on. And the thing that I hate most about the movie is how cringe it is. And I get that it's supposed to be cringe, but what I didn't realize is that it would feel to me that I, as a person, am super cringe, which I am, but I'm not that juvenile. I'm not that cringe. So yes, it's quite uncomfortable for me to even look at this spot and especially listen to it, because I behave like one of those juvenile film YouTubers, and I hate that so much. But yeah, I would really wish to have like a good actor who has the time and the patience to act in my movies, but since I don't have anything like that, I have to do it myself, even though I'm not a great actor or anything. Here we have like a brochure, or however you spell it, that was given to me by Jehovah's Witnesses, and I didn't even realize that that was from Jehovah's Witnesses, but I just thought that it looked strange, and yeah, so I put it into the film, and the suggestion is that my mom gave this to me through like the door. Here we have another classic shot that a YouTuber or influencer would make. And again, it's incredibly cringe. I have this Reservoir Dog shirt on. I have a DVD of Charlie Chaplin's The Great Dictator in my hand. And yes, I'm going to throw the DVD away in a quite arrogant gesture. And yes, I think that's actually also quite a nice gesture, because it shows that I don't really care about cinema that much. I just care about, about whatever it is that drives influencers to go on camera. And I have actually no idea what it is. It's a big mystery to me still, even after this film. And here now we have another very metaphorical scene where I get this birthday present from my sister, and it's of course this shitty thing I have. Yes, my great friend and colleague Markus Carlson Hafner, he's a great actor and musician. He's in few of my films, and we are in a band together, Genetically Manipulated Flies, and he gave this to me. It plays like the Godfather theme. I wanted to put this in the film. Here we have like a shot of this plastic skull, and it's actually not really meant to be a metaphor for anything. It was just that I needed to adjust the focus on the camera, so I needed to put something in my place to adjust the focus, and so I used this plastic skull, and I just put in the shots where I adjust the focus. And now you see it's still not really good focused because I'm moving all the time and so on. So yes, the actual plan was here to edit so fast and so violently that you can't even understand anything. Here we have like a shot of some shots of Pasolini's Salo or the 120 Days of Sodom with like a laughing track above it, like it's a comedy. And here we have to remind ourselves again that this film is supposed to be like shot by Alan Smithy but edited by Maria Smithy, so there's already the critique of the bad jokes I'm telling here. And yes, it just goes on and on. I'm talking so much bullshit there. Some of it is really, really, really bad. But again, I'm still, I would even wish that I had really edited it so fast and so chaotically that you couldn't even understand anything. But yes, so the way it is right now, I guess it's just closer to actual YouTubers and so on. I think this is the scene where I'm complaining about a conversation that I had with a friend of mine. This actually happened, and we talked about realism in cinema and the concept of reality and so on. And my friend Amro El Tatavi, the famous Austrian director of Unicorn House, a movie that is still lost, is still unfinished, but hopefully will be released someday. He claimed that in the future we will have like CGI tears that will be more real than actual reality, and I complained in reality and also here in the film that this can never happen because reality is as real as it gets and so on. And even if CGI has like more details than a real tear, a CGI tier has more details than a real tier, it's not more real than reality or anything. But of course I didn't realize that Amro El Tatawi was of course way ahead of me at the time, and that he was actually talking about Jean Baudrillard's theory about hyperreality and so on, and that it actually is in a sense more real than reality, in the sense that it is hyper real, so that it's part of a symbolic network that replaces the actual network. For example, pornography, the sex that you see in pornography is more real than actual sex, because actual sex is often just penetration and so on. But in pornography you can have all different kinds of acrobatic penetration that you would probably never have in real life. And well, also when this movie came out, it was shown like in some film schools and something in Austria and so on. A bunch of people complained to me that I was talking so much in those scenes, that those scenes are so long. Someone actually complained to me that I have to edit a different frame, a different shot every, I don't know, 20 seconds or something like that. And this guy was actually, or claimed to be, a big fan of Andrei Tarkovsky and so on, so I absolutely did not get this. I don't care if people get bored by this. In fact, that's the whole meaning of this really lengthy shot of people talking directly into the camera. I wonder why people watch this on YouTube, but they won't stand it in cinema. Where exactly do people draw the line between those two formats? I don't know that. I don't think that I have an answer to this question, but at least that's something that always fascinated me, and I think that at least this film is to an extent a showcase of what a director is doing who is equally influenced by film history and like YouTubers and influencers and like the internet's age. Here you have my actual sister Susanne playing the sister of Alan Smithy, Maria Smithy. We shot this shot, we recorded this shot like probably 50 times, and with different movies. She was actually supposed to watch Manus, the Hands of Fate, but then I just did the classic, and here we have Night of the Living Dead. There are no copyrights, and I absolutely adore this film. I also thought that it would be better to have like black and white shots, because here now in the next scene we have like a green screen sequence where I'm in color and the background is like in black and white, and I thought that that would just look way nicer than to have a color film like Manus, the Hands of Fate in the background. So, yada yada yada, I'm probably still talking about some pseudo intellectual bullshit. And now we obviously see that this is an incredibly bad green screen effect. It's horrific and horrendous. Also, another reason, of course, I have this Night of the Living Dead t shirt already with the green um, letters, so that this also works as a green screen, but it doesn't really matter because the green screen effect is so bad because the lighting is so awful. And now, because the story is like this, because George A. Romero died and his last movies were bad, I'm now, cutting myself like an emo teenager and so on. I'm actually cutting myself here with like a razor blade, and it was so hard for me. I mean, I did this when I was like 14 or 15 or something. I got into a very depressed stage, or I was just like, I don't even know what I would call it. I never got like there was never any psychologist who actually said that I'm depressed or anything like that, but I just tried to cut myself sometimes. I had this razor blade with me everywhere, in like my shoe or something, like Mr. Blonde in Reservoir Dogs, and I was actually in England with my school, with Amro El Tatavi, and they asked us to note something, some address in London so that we won't get lost. And I just cut it into my hand with like a razor blade and was then embarrassed because I was bleeding and so on. But I didn't even notice that this was abnormal. So I guess that I wasn't really depressed or anything. I was just so reckless. But here we see that I have completely changed. It was so hard for me to do this. It felt so uncomfortable. So yes, I don't know what was going on with me as a child. Yeah, but again, it doesn't really matter that it's so hard. In fact, it makes the scene, I think, a lot better because, as you will see soon, the whole purpose of this is not to, I don't know, feel something again or cope with my emotions that George A. Romero died, but it's just to make like these photos and then post them on social media supposedly and so on. Yes, it's just another lazy social critique of social media and like how we are showcasing depressions on social media or mental health issues on social media. You can really brag about being depressed or having mental health issues. And yeah, that's basically the whole idea of the scene. And you will also soon see those effects. I wanted to just have different effects on it as another kind of critique, but I had no clue what effects were actually used on social media normally. So yes, here you have the scary camera. It was like inspired by shots from Inland Empire, where the camera looks like some kind of monster or some otherworldly entity. That's basically what I tried to convey here. Here again, we have a shot where my face is slowly disappearing behind the camera. That was also, of course, inspired by these René Magritte paintings with this guy who has an apple in front of his face, just like this image. Now we have like another embarrassing scene where I'm just walking up and down in my room with this self-made light ball on the left, and I'm like supposedly talking to a producer or something and trying to pitch like a screenplay or something like that, and I get like frustrated. I'm a jerk. Yeah, it was just another classic scene to show how fake and desperate I am. It's pretty much like a Taxi Driver type character study, this film, but a postmodern like Taxi Driver, like with this unreliable narrator. But we have also the sister Mary Smithy, I guess, or however you want to call her, who is editing the whole thing in hindsight to I don't know, criticize me or make me look stupid, or the Alan Smithy character. I'm just going to say me When I say me, I mean the Alan Smithy character in most instances. That was actually also something that people said to me. They said that watching this movie is actually just like interacting with me in reality, which is like a pretty good sign that they either don't understand the film or don't understand me as a person, because most of my opinions are pretty much opposite to the opinions of this character. Here we have a montage of old video clips. Here we have Markus Carlson Hafner in the background. I'm hunting him down with like a swastika in my face. It was like a World War II film, and we back then thought that World War II was just like a day where all people on the entire planet Earth just decided to kill each other. So that's what we're seeing here. And some of them had swastikas. Yeah, it's just this montage of old video clips with Johann Sebastian Bach's Goldberg-Variation in the background, which is still one of my absolute favorite pieces of music. And yeah, I just wanted to convey how cringe and kitsch it is to take like old home videos and lay some music over them, and then lay some voiceover over them, and say how deep this is, how much beauty is in there, and so on. Because I always tended to think in this way, but at the time that I made this movie, I suddenly realized that, you know, children and so on are really like horrible. Here you have Markus Carlson Hafner as Hitler with a blue Hitler mustache making like the Nazi salute and so on. So yeah, I don't think that children are innocent. I think that children are deeply, deeply evil creatures. And this scene is constructed in such a way that it is supposed to glorify childhood and those childhood experiences of filming things, which I think most people from my generation are very familiar with, you know, making like short home videos as a child and glorifying them later. And I just wanted to convey how, in a sense, I don't know, disgusting I think that is actually. I hate emotional scenes that are manipulative and that are using music to manipulate the audience. So that's also something that I think most people might misunderstand to an extent. Whenever I'm using, in all of my films, whenever I'm using like a type of music to convey a message, the message is always the opposite of what the music conveys. Like the music is always there to make it feel off, to make it feel fake, to show the audience how disgusting and manipulative this type of usage of music truly is. And it doesn't really matter if you use like something great like the Goldberg Variationen from Bach that I'm using here. It's always disgusting, but at the same time, in these images, I have to say there is some kind of a strange, bizarre beauty to it, but it's not the beauty of childhood innocence. It is maybe the beauty of childhood perversion that's in there. And so, yes, that's in a sense the thing that I wanted to say. And those are all outtakes from actual films that I've made. Which is also, of course, kind of a Lars von Trier move, you know, in The House That Jack Builds. Lars von Trier is using footage from his old movies and so on, and making like a sarcastic postmodern commentary on it, and that's kind of the same thing that I'm doing here. I think my version is actually better. I think that that's more intelligent than what Lars von Trier did in The House That Jack Built. Still, one of my great problems of the movie is that that it is, in a sense, this postmodern trap that most people who try to use postmodern, let's say, theory in art are trapping into, and that is, alright, I want it to be bad, so it cannot be bad anymore. I think now that this is a complete cop-out. I think there's a pretty good chance that this movie is actually just incredibly awful. And that's okay with me. It was like an interesting experiment, and I agree with Harmony Corinne that even if it doesn't work, maybe at least I know it's interesting and that I just went for it. That's actually something that I can quite agree that this character, Alan Smithy, is saying in the end, that at least he has done the movie and so on. I mean, yeah, I agree. I think even if the film doesn't work, as long as some of the visuals like this one are interesting, now we'll have like a montage scene. I'm a big fan of montages. I want to make a movie that's completely compiled out of montages, because montages really give you the chance to just experiment with the visuals and sound. So there's no story that's really conveyed here actually. It's just trying to find interesting images, trying to mix them to sound. Of course, here we have like my production of crystal meth in like my homemade laboratory, and at the same time you can listen to the soundtrack from the film The Third Man, which actually plays in Austria, and it's also about drug dealing in a sense. So it made perfect sense to me to make like these images of modern day drug production and overlay them with this score to a movie from the 30s that also is playing in Austria. And yes, I actually tried to make a functional math lab in my in my room, but yeah, it obviously didn't work. I'm way too untalented and uneducated to make a functional math lab or anything. In the background we see Scarface, of course, also a movie that's like a big inspiration for modern day wannabe gangsters who then actually turn into real life gangsters sometimes, which is in most cases incredibly tragic. And I mean, I know people who got like inspired by gangster movies as children and then tried to be gangsters and then actually became gangsters, and they are not happy. I can tell you that much. So yes, it didn't really work, but so the thing that is coming out there is like soap. I just put like a few drops of soap in there and it's like coming out there, and the actual meth crystals that you see in the movie is just like sugar that I have made pink with like, I don't know, I actually wanted to make it red, and it was actually produced for a completely different movie that's called Red Meth. This title was suggested to me by Amro El-Tawi, who will, by the way, also appear in this movie in an extremely small cameo. And yes, this film Red Meth was actually supposed to be like a gangster romance film, some shit like that, something like Kids and Bonnie and Clyde combined, or something like that. I wanted to make this film with Nico Stern and Katharina Schark in the leading roles. They will also appear later on in this film. So this was also meant to be a meta commentary on this film on this film Red Meth. So this is in a sense the making of this film Red Meth that was never actually made. But I completely threw away the screenplay to Red Meth because I think it's just childish. But I'm actually kind of working on the story of Red Meth, or on the concept of Red Meth right now, and it doesn't really have a screenplay anymore. It's just I'm following another great actress, one of my greatest discoveries, Anna Kovac, of course, and I'm just following her day-to-day life with an iPhone and filming it, and of course also constructing scenes for her that seem to be inspired by real life, or that seem to be documentary footage but are actually not. It's very much inspired by like Gummo and other movies by Harmony Korine. And yes, I'm working on this film. This film will also have a cameo by Tilda Swinton that I already shot, but it will not be called Red Meth, because by now I also think that Red Meth is an incredibly stupid and childish title. I mean, the idea was that we will have like meth, and then there will be blood splattered on the meth parts at some point in the film, which I actually thought was a great scene that was in the original screenplay of Red Meth. On the end of Red Meth, it was supposed to be like a fight between the main characters and some random, I don't know, burglars or something like that. And it was like the main character was on LSD and was suddenly seeing that meth is not healthy. And then the plan was that they would like take an empty canvas, put it on the floor, put like the meth all over it to make like painting out of the meth, to make like the meth that they had. They would wonder all the time, the entire movie, what to do with this crystal meth. Should we just do it? Should we just sell it to someone else, or what to do with crystal meth? And the end message of the film was, no, you should use it to create something beautiful, like a painting, and like glue it on a canvas and make a painting out of it. And then while this is going on, the burglars would just go into the room, and then there would be a fight, and one of the burglars would be like beaten to death on this canvas, laying in this meth, and all the blood would splatter on the meth and on the canvas. And so it would be like this painting of drugs and violence that also conveys some sort of beauty and so on. That actually was a great scene that I have written. I absolutely adore this idea and this image. And yeah, that's absolutely something that I want to shoot in a future project maybe. But yes, it's unrealistic. And here's now the scene where I'm talking about the fake tear, I think. And yes, this was pretty much the discussion that I actually had in real life with Amrol Tatawi, and I have still not, I don't know, apologized to him for being stupid and for being uneducated on the theories of Jean Baudrillard. You can see here the map is in the background. There's also a DVD of Goodfellas, because I thought, okay, there have to be DVDs in the background. Him screaming around, of course, like most modern YouTubers do all the time, in like jump cuts and so on. It's incredibly annoying to me. But yes, I think it's not the most unrealistic depiction of like a YouTuber or something like that. Well, yes, it really goes on and on forever. I actually now quite understand this criticism from this one guy. It is really horrendous to look at this. And it is an unfocused image, even though I was using this skull for real to adjust the focus. But whatever, I mean, okay, it's an unsharp image. So what? It's only in HD anyways. But yes, you can also see this Star Wars shirt that I'm wearing right now. This was also exclusively bought for this movie, and I have to say, most of the things that I own that are like, you know, clothings and so on, are bought by me specifically for movies, or they are gifts from other people to me. I basically never buy anything just to wear it. I either get it as a present or I buy it as a costume, and this Star Wars shirt was one of those costume things that I bought. I don't even think that I have it anymore. I'm not a big fan of fandom, of the concept of being a fan of something because fan basically is short term for fanatic, and I hate fanaticism. I'm a big fan of critical theory and so on. I'm not a cinema essentialist, and I am even cynical about like absolutely amazing films that I love. Here we have a shot that I also did a couple of times. Uh, this is like pure sugar that I'm trying to snort, and also you might have noticed that I used like a €5 note to snort this supposed meth that I have made. This €5 note was actually prepared by me with like pure alcohol, so that there are no bacteria or viruses on it anymore, because it's actually extremely unhealthy and there's a high risk to get ill if you snort any substance with like money, because it has been in so many hands and you can get like a bunch of illnesses by doing this. So yeah, this is just a safer use tip for all of you out there. Don't use a $5 bill, a used one, to snort anything. But it was also a metaphor, of course, for the fakeness of this wannabe tough guy who wants to be like a hardcore drug user, but who has actually no idea how to use drugs. And it there are those little things in the film that convey that this guy is actually completely faking his entire character, which is quite obvious in this sequence, which was of course directly inspired by Stanley Kubrick's The Clockwork Orange, this famous threesome sex scene in The Clockwork Orange. And yes, originally there was this same score, the Wilhelm Tell overture, over this shot, but Amro El-Tatawi actually told me that this one is kind of too much on the nose. It's a too clear reference and so on. And so I changed the music to like this song you can hear right now. And it's from, I don't even know who has like written or performed it, but it's from the ending of Claire Denis', how is it called? Vieux Travail, of course, where you have like this gay soldier dancing in a club alone, and you hear this song playing over it. It's one of the most breathtaking and beautiful movie endings ever. And it's also, of course, like a postmodern reference that is supposed to show that Alan Smithy, my character, might be gay or trans or anything, and is like suppressing his actual identity by this machismo, by this performance of like a tough guy and a gangster and so on. And yes, I mean, it's one of the topics that I am most interested in all of my films. If you have seen Arm or Untitled, it's pretty much exactly the same story in Arm or Untitled. I play like this character who tries so hard to be a Nazi and a racist and a homophobe and a transphobe, and in the end he's like wandering around in women's clothes and is like it's getting intimate with like an Arab and stuff like that, or at least that's what's how it looks like in the ending of Armor Untitled. It's also like one of the major themes in the 166 Minutes of Madness, where you have like all of those characters who also try to perform a kind of toughness, you know, running around with weapons and so on, using like homophobic slurs and stuff like that, and then are basically always involved in some type of homoerotic behavior. I'm so fascinated by those kind of things in movies generally, in like David Lynch films and stuff like that, or like Mysterious Skin and so on. Those are films that are very, very haunting and impressive to me. Or as I said, Beau Travail is one of my favorite movies of all time. Here we have like a scene where I'm talking to my love interest in this film, played by Katharina Shark, and I'm quoting like Taxi Driver to impress her or something, and of course she's like hanging up on me. So the idea was that there is like this girl that I want to impress with like my fake persona that I got from a bunch of movies and so on. Here's a quite clear visual metaphor for that, which I think is actually kind of stupid. I mean, this shot here is kind of stupid, I have to say. But yeah, it's pretty fake, and of course she's like hanging up on me, and oh my god, I'm so sad now. Freeze frame, very Martin Scorsese-esque. I stole this picture that you're going to see in a few seconds. It was taken in London, you know, where I was running around with like a razor blade in my shoe and so on. I already told you about that. Yeah, so here you see a bunch of classmates, and this is like one of my classmates, Katharina Shark, and yeah, she's like part of this movie. And because the basically the premise of the film is regarding this character, that I, as a filmmaker, want to cast her for a role in this film Red Meth I'm working on, but she doesn't want to be in it, probably because I'm just a creep. And so the scene you're seeing right now is supposed to convey that I'm like on the dark net to buy myself an illegal prostitute or something like that. So just got like non-copyright pictures from Google, put like those black things over the faces, and just made like a PowerPoint presentation and then filmed it. So yes, the situation right now is that Alan Smithy is searching for a leading lady for his film Red Meth, and therefore he's trying to buy like an illegal prostitute and so on. So yeah, quite a funny sideline, and I actually like it quite a bit. The score you're hearing is of course from Jean-Luc Godard's Contempt, and that's of course also the acting that I'm trying to do here with my eyes is like I'm trying to convey contempt and so on. So I have this fitting score over it. Yeah, it's quite cheesy, but it is extremely postmodern. What should I say? Now we have some of the most interesting shots, I think, because one of the other themes I'm very interested in as a filmmaker, as an artist in general, is of course religion. So this was filmed in a wood that actually is owned by my family. Here we have like a fake revolver, and yeah, in the background you see like a statue of the Virgin Mary and so on. The thing I really don't like here are my shoes, because my shoes are not really the kind of shoes that a person like Alan Smithy, quote unquote Alan Smithy, would wear. I think he would wear something like, you know, Jordans, Nike sneakers or something cooler than that. Here is now the gangsters that I met on the darknet, the Skeleton Gang as they are credited, and of course they're just complete jerks and children. They are played by my brother Thomas and a friend of ours, and yeah, Aaron. Yes, it's absolutely hilarious. Well, the actual plan was that the great actor Eric Hübel, who was also a classmate of mine, played like a transsexual prostitute, and I would like laugh about this his transsexualism and so on. But yeah, he somehow it never came to be. I don't know, I think he had not the time to do it, and so I just came up with this scene where like I actually meet the gangsters and that they are just throwing like a puppet on the floor in front of me. Now I'm running after them because they have like, well, screwed me, so to speak. I want to shoot them, but the gun doesn't fire, mainly because I was afraid to actually run around on the street firing like a gun. Understandably so, I think, because, well, it's just not cool. People can get really scared, and I was like busted a few times for like all different kinds of things in this area, so the police actually already knew me kind of, and I didn't want to have unnecessary trouble. But yeah, it actually made a bunch of sense because the next scene we're going to have is going to be a scene that would actually not be possible really if I would have fired the gun properly. Also, then I would have to explain why the bicyclists don't just drop dead or something like that. But yes, so all in all, it was like improvised that the gun wouldn't fire. The original plan was to fire it, but then it actually worked quite nicely. So I guess I have some type of talent to work around obstacles in films. Close-up of this puppet. This is actually the puppet that we also used in the 166 Minutes of Madness and Nerfmation. That's why it's burned, because we blew it up for a Nerfmation episode. If you want to see Nerfmation, it's all on YouTube, the entire show. So yes, Spider-Man shot because I couldn't think of anything else. And yes, of course, aesthetic, freeze frame. Also, this movie is heavily inspired by Martin Scorsese and also Chris Marker, of course, especially his films La Cité and Sans Soleil. Yes, here a classic montage of close-ups, very Scorsese-esque, I think. I'm explaining why the revolver wasn't working. And now we will have a shot of like an actual weapon store, and I was filming this without permission, and someone came along and threatened to sue me because I was filming like the store without a permission or anything. Here we have now my new weapon, a Desert Eagle, because it's so incredibly cool and it's from Matrix. I think that's quite fitting. What I don't like about the shot is I think it would be cooler if another movie, like an action movie or something, or maybe even Scarface again, was like playing on the TV there. So yes, it would be a more interesting shot, I think, but it's still an interesting shot. The problem that I had with this gun for real is that I didn't realize that I had like the wrong ammunition for it. So it took like it's all blanks, but they are like for the revolver, and I just put them into the magazine of the Desert Eagle, and it only could shoot one time, and after that it would stuck, and I had to completely reload the gun. Also, I was not really able to put like the ammunition in the magazine, as you see here. So this scene was also completely improvised. And yeah, but I thought it is also quite hilarious that I have like, this Reservoir Dog sweater and this pullover from Reservoir Dogs, and I'm not even able to load like this fake gun or anything. So yes, I thought even though it's coincidental, it's kind of fitting to the movie. It's also like a long and drawn out scene. But yes, I actually do like the shot to an extent. It seems chaotic and also like a classic tableau in a sense. Well, yes, I have to say, it also goes on and on and on. And I'm not even sure if there's that much of a message to it. Yes, you could have shortened this shot probably. I don't know if I'm a big fan of this anymore. I thought it was cool when I first recorded it and watched it. And as you will see in the next shots where I'm actually firing the gun, after every shot there is like a cut, and that's really because I could only fire this gun once and then had to reload it. I'm also then wearing like this helmet on the right because of my ears, obviously. So yes, you can also see that the soap that was coming out of my math lab actually ran into this old baseball helmet, and I just put like a piece of paper into the helmet so that the helmet itself didn't get, well, filled up with soap. So the closer you look at the math lab, the less sense it all makes. I mean, it already looks incredibly stupid. But yes, the closer you look at it, the more stupid it really gets. So now there's the big moment where I'm shooting the gun and so on. Come on, let's go. Yeah, you already see where the problem really is. So yeah, it's going on and on and on. Oh my god. It's actually kind of funny. You've also seen that I was like interrupted, and this was my sister actually knocking at the door. She wanted something from me, and I just like screamed at her because I was so deep into the role, of course, like a real method actor. That's also why I was doing like real drugs for the film, even though it wasn't necessary at all. It was actually quite uncommon to me to like buy illegal drugs or use illegal drugs and so on. I really only did it for the movie, and it was so strange and so hard to actually get them. Like, people told me that I had to get into some strange online platforms so that I could communicate with like a server that would delete all my messages after like a few minutes, so that my communication was not traceable by like police and so on. So yes, it took an extreme amount of effort to actually get like the LSD, and I also had MDMA. So for this one shot where I was like running around in this room, I snorted like an incredibly tiny amount of MDMA, and I didn't really feel anything. But I used MDMA pretty frequently. For like 1 week, I took it like every day just because I wanted to get into the mindset of someone who is actually a drug addict, but it never worked for me. It was always just like, I don't know, really disgusting, and I never did enough to really be high. It was just like drinking coffee, but also having like those crystals in my nose, which is just incredibly uncomfortable. I mean, I like MDMA, do whatever you want if you are like a reasonable adult, but yeah, I'm not really that interested in drugs for myself at all anymore. I'm really interested in drug politics. Now we get to like a storyboard of Red Math, a supposed storyboard. Here you see like, oh my god, of course we have to have a sex scene in it, and the storyboard is way too detailed. It's like, this also makes little sense. I mean, how can you have sex like that? Shouldn't her legs be outside? It's, oh my god, I think when I drew this, I was like a virgin. I had no idea how sex actually worked. This was a role that I actually planned for Eric Hübel again in the actual Red Math film that I was planning to shoot. So these are like actually storyboard elements for the movie Red Math, and yep, they were way too stylized for a storyboard to ever be able to work. But yes, since this entire movie has like this heightened reality and seems like a fake documentary, which is it in a sense is, yeah, exactly like most YouTube videos are, especially those supposedly completely natural and real and authentic YouTube videos. I hate authenticity so much. I think authenticity is a completely fake concept. And if you try to be authentic, you're probably way more fake than if you are just faking the personality that you want to have. So my problem with authenticity is that you're still constructing yourself. You're just doing it subconsciously, and you don't even realize how you're constructing your own persona and so on. So my idea of being yourself is to consciously construct the kind of person that you want to be, project this kind of self-image into the future, and then work towards it. So I stole all of this from like Jacques Lacan and Slavoj Žižek, obviously, but if you want to be yourself and also to be happy with yourself, then what you should do is what Bruce Wayne did in Batman, which is like construct this artificial figure of Batman and then become Batman. And at the end of Batman Begins, this Christopher Nolan film, which is a very Lacanian film, we suddenly realize that Bruce Wayne, of course, is the mask, and the Batman mask is the real face. The Batman mask is the true personality, and Bruce Wayne is the fake, authentic one. So this kind of authenticity, who is Batman really, who is he authentically in his private life, is not the real thing. The real thing is Batman, the real thing is the mask. And that is, in a sense, the kind of criticism that I wanted to convey with this film. Here we have like me and this puppet head watching Gone with the Wind, and this is supposed to be like a scene that Alan Smith is shooting for his film Red Meth, but because he couldn't get this leading actress played by Katharina Shark, he is like using the actual puppet head because he could also not get this illegal prostitute. So he's just like starting to talk with this with this puppet head, but apparently, as we see here, he is not happy with the performance of this puppet. So yes, I'm just smoking in my room. I also absolutely hate smoking. There's like small gestures there are like because I'm getting smoke in my face, in my eyes. I absolutely hate to smoke. Here now the famous and infamous fight scene with Nico Stern. We completely improvised this, and I think actually that Nico Stern just owed me some favor, and I just told him, well, alright, after school you're getting into my room and we will fight and I will film all of this. So yeah, this angle is so strange because it's supposed to be a camera hiding or a camera that's hidden beneath the bed and is like a hidden camera filming this whole scenario for the making of that Alan Smithy is making for his film Red Meth. And so he's trying to sell this fake meth to this drug dealer who might be fake or real. Here we see the actual result of the fight that we will have in the future. So yes, Nico Stern, he actually got hurt pretty badly, and I'm so proud that someone got hurt, because I think I actually talked with Tilda Swinton about this when I told her that I was like nearly I got arrested for like shooting a scene somewhere in the woods where I like created some graffiti on some old building, and she said yeah, that's a badge of honor. For me, it's definitely a badge of honor if someone gets like hurt on the film set. I mean, not that badly hurt, but I don't know, to shoot a movie and no one gets hurt is kind of boring. I like that suddenly there's this kind of unexpected realism in this film, And yeah, here we're just improvising, and I don't know, the dialogue is so incredibly embarrassing and shitty, and we're just like laughing the whole time and acting so utterly stupid. But I kind of love this scene, I have to say, for this whole stupidity. We also shot this thing, like, I think we shot it at least twice, because the first time my mother just came into the room and asked Nico Stern to remove his car because she couldn't, drive away because his car was standing in the way. And then I screamed at my mother and said, "Get the fuck out of here, you stupid bitch," because I tried to be into the character still, because I thought, alright, I mean, maybe I can use this for the movie. And you can imagine how embarrassed Nico Stern was when I was like calling my mother a stupid bitch while he was just standing in the room with me. Yeah, one of the favorite scenes that I have ever shot, just because of the novelty that I actually punched Nico Stern in the face and threw him into my table, which you will see in a moment. And this was actually not supposed to happen. Also, my table was badly injured by this. A part of my table broke, and Nico Stern's sweater and his t-shirt were also destroyed. I mean, the table got through his clothing and into his bag, and I think he has still a scar there. So Nico, props for being a pro, props for not suing me or anything. Yeah, the improvised dialogue about meth just continues. We are laughing all the time, being completely childish, which is also kind of fitting to the whole concept of the film. So yes, yeah, incredibly childish, and it also moves on and on and on. I understand this Tarkovsky fan who criticized me for those extremely long shots. I understand him more and more, but I think that's also just because I have to make this audio commentary track, and so it gets quite exhausting to talk all the time about this other shit that we are seeing there. And yes, the fight scene. Now he's looking around, Nico. He's suddenly like, oh my god, seeing the camera breaking the fourth wall. We are now finally realizing that the camera is like hidden and that he doesn't even know that he's filmed. And now I'm attacking Nico with like this hammer, punching him in the balls. That was not for real. I really wanted Nico to punch me for real, but he was such a coward that he, like, I don't know, hugged me a little bit. I hate this so much. I love how the skull fell in front of the camera, and I'm using a real knife here, and Nico's actually punching this knife out of my hand, with also the great risk of being hurt. Here now an obvious reference to Old Boy with this freeze frame. Nico was supposed to like kick me in the head, but that was also not real. He is such a coward that he didn't want to actually kick me in the head. Yeah, I am shouting a little bit at him. Another incredibly cringe scene. He's just going away now for some reason. And yes, a super dramatical scream out. Yeah. And I think the good thing about me now screaming is that I'm immediately cutting into the song This Is the End from The Doors. And yeah, now we are getting into an obvious reference to Apocalypse Now by Francis Ford Coppola, of course. The song by The Doors, it's the same song. Now we have this overlaying psychedelic images, and this was basically just like a very long stretched out montage that's supposed to convey like a descent in madness and so on, obviously conveyed by more and more film references, because that is in a sense a kind of madness to me, to be so consumed by cinema that you can only think in terms of cinematic references and so on. That's something that's truly terrifying to me, and that most young filmmakers, when they start out, fall victim to, is that they are so influenced by other filmmakers that they have no own voice or anything like that. And yeah, that's really tragic. Here I have like another not really talk, but I'm listening, I guess, to my mother talking to me through the door. Of course, not played by my real mother. But yeah, yeah, another long scene, even though I like the shot. And yes, it's just going on and on with the music, doing drugs, watching films, and descending more and more in like a postmodern cinematic drug-fueled fever dream. And I honestly think that it's not that bad. I mean, I kind of enjoy this montage. I mean, there are some scenes that I don't like that much. There are some scenes that I really enjoy. I enjoy this shot to an extent. I like the lighting that's coming from the right into the frame, and it seems kind of feverish. It seems like really fake, as I wanted it to be. Here we have also like a reference to Kenneth Anger's film Invitation of My Demon Brother and so on, those overlaid images. Yes, and we are now moving to another shot where I'm basically like just sitting there with now actual footage from Apocalypse Now overlaid the image. You can see that I have like the light source actually on my lap, which is another detail that shows you how fake and constructed this entire meltdown really is. And now we are getting to the infamous iPhone shot where I'm tripping in my room and so on. I have not actually like widened eyes or anything like that, because yeah, that was probably a really small dose and so on. I was just like so fascinated by being alone in my room the entire night, and so yes, I just thought, okay, let's just record this. You're listening to the Trashman's song, The Word is the Bird, or however it's called. You know, it's the song from Full Metal Jacket, and also from Pink Flamingos, and also from Family Guy, and so on. Yeah, I thought it was just the perfect song, because it is such a trashy shot. And yeah, enjoyed that. I enjoyed that this is really a shot that seems authentic to an extent that the other shots in this film are not. And well, I think there's some actual chaos in the way that this is shot, and that it's upside down was not intentional. That was really just because I didn't really get how to film this exactly. Here I'm not really trying to make the peace sign. I'm like playing with the lights and so on, because it looked really cool to me, at least. And well, yes, it's also a scene that goes on and on and on. And the next stage of this descent into madness and so on is going to be super abstract and super film inspired and extremely loud. It's starting right now. There's this incredibly loud sound effect that I put into it, and when this film was first shown in on a small cinema screen, actually, for like film students, actually some of their neighbors called the police or were uh, getting into the film school to tell them that they are going to call the police because this was so loud. And I'm really proud of that because that was probably the first time that a feature film by me was shown in an actual cinema on a big screen. And yes, immediately there was like a big confrontation with like the neighbors and the police and everything. I wasn't even there. I didn't even know that they were showing my film there. But yes, I was really happy about that. And here we see all kinds of images combined from like Stan Brakhage movies and also from Gaspar Noé's how's it called? Irreversible, just like this white flickering that's supposed to give you like an epileptic shock and anything like, or something like that. Also for all epileptics, please don't watch this. And you can also see images of like an operation on the genitals, and that's like, those are images from like cutting off like a penis and the testicles and transforming them into a vagina. It's like this transition from a man to a woman, which is also of course like a metaphor for the suppressed identity of this character who, yes, might not be willing to accept his own sexuality and his own identity, and that's why this bad dream, this bad trip, this nightmare dream of hallucinations has so much to do with those images of like transsexualism and so on. And here we have a few other shots that I actually quite like because they have such a surreal nature to them, and I love also the sound design actually because you can listen to the sounds of the opening scene of Ingmar Bergman's Persona, one of my favorite movies. So you hear all of those really creepy sounds like dripping water and the phone is ringing and so on. And also you can listen to multiple interviews with famous film directors, and also the voiceover, my voiceover, is now only repeating like quotes from filmmakers. So I'm just starting to quote Werner Herzog, I'm quoting Jean-Luc Godard, and it's like supposed to convey like that I suppressing my identity so much that I can only speak now in quotes from filmmakers that I want to that I admire to some extent, or that I just want to not be myself anymore. So yes, I actually quite enjoy this sequence. I enjoy those close-ups. Now we'll have an obvious metaphor in the connection between violence and sexuality. The gun that I put like in my trousers there, that's supposed to resemble a penis, of course. The gun is like a phallic symbol there because that's I think something that really happens in reality. If you cannot accept your sexuality, it will pervert to some violent stage that we are seeing right now in, of course, like a scene that's inspired by Taxi Driver. And that's actually a scene where I'm now trying to reflect on this constant repetition of like film scenes or quotes from films or quotes from directors and so on. But now at this moment that I'm actually trying to reflect on all of that and trying to reflect on my identity, my mother, or the mother of Alan Smithy and so on, is like knocking on the door and is like complaining and so on. Also about my father, that's also one of the key things in all of my films, is like the missing father who is never really there, but who is some kind of a threat still. It's like the Lacanian big other who is like still, yes, as I've said, some kind of a threat, even though he is not actually there. Here we have also a shot that I really like, and I think I'm going to I don't know, imitate like movie scores now. I think I'm doing like Halloween or Star Wars even. Yes, and I also like the juxtaposition of those in extremely like rough and dirty images combined with like famous movie scores and so on. I actually, yeah, it's just a cool juxtaposition. I like this. And now we will see some sloppy editing. I hope that you don't see the edits. But the next scene is like actually taking place in my garden. And well, I'm going now to Katharina Shark. That's like actually the plot that's supposed to be going on. Or to the character that's played by Katharina Shark, to like force her to be in my movie and to just film like a quick shootout scene with her without her consent. So here's like the edit that you're not supposed to see. It actually doesn't look that bad. I think it looks kind of realistic. I like this hellish red lighting. This was not color graded or anything. It's just because there was such low lighting that all of this looks really extremely grainy. This is now supposed to be like where this character is living. And yes, I just knock on the door. She opens the door. She has like blue face paint. It's like a beauty mask, and it's also of course reference to Pierrot le Fou, Jean-Luc Godard. You see that my gun is now already empty, and here's Amro El Tatawi asking what the hell I'm doing here, and I'm like shooting at him and calling him all kinds of racist slurs. He wanted me to use extreme racist slurs. I didn't want to, but he said, no, we have to use racist slurs in the scene. And I think he was right, actually. So yeah, those other shots or the sound effects of the shooting was like put in later. And here I'm running through the main city. I grew up in Klagenfurt, or as it's called in English, Carinthia. And yeah, most people don't like it, but I like it to an extent because it's so small and empty that I can just run around with a camera and a gun in my hand in the middle of the night, and no one will even notice it because no one is there. So yeah, people who live there will recognize it for sure and think that it's kind of funny that I actually shot this scene here. Yes, I also, oh my god, how could I not mention this? Props to Katharina Shark also, because I actually shot in her face multiple times. We shot this scene like, I think 3 times or something, and I had no idea how dangerous this weapon really is. I mean, there's no like actual the only thing that's coming out of the gun is like fire and so on, and pressure, of course, but it is still deadly. Like if you get too close to a human skull, the skull will just break apart or anything. And even if you're not, the next worst thing is that you will get blind if you get this fire into your eyes. And we didn't really plan out how close I can get with the weapon. I just said, okay, open the door and I will shoot at your face. And she just did this 3 times in a row. And so absolutely props to that, getting in such an extremely dangerous situation for the film. Yes, I admire that kind of courage. And yes, Katharina, you have real balls. That's great. That's how actors are supposed to behave, I think. Here we have like a really somber and quite improvised scene. I wanted to, like in Taxi Driver, convey this kind of emptiness and sadness after an act of violence, like that there is no catharsis or anything, that I'm just sitting there and having still no idea what I'm doing, and I'm even more lost than before. There was no big goal that I achieved or anything like that. I just did this one shot with her, and I might put it into this film Red Meth that Alan Smithy is supposed to work on, or I might not do it. It might just be like an outburst of frustrated violence against, like, I don't know, my own sexuality or my frustration with the film project I'm working on that's failing. And yes, I just sat there for a while, and I actually really, really like this shot because it's so long and because it's so aimless. Like, there's no real goal now, and I think it's great that it actually shows this state of being completely lost and just having no idea what you're supposed to do now. You could take a bus or not. I think this character at this point is like in a identity wasteland pretty much, and has no idea how to construct his identity again. And now we are going to see a church and an image of the church and of Jesus for a moment, which was also so fitting for me because the church could convey some kind of an identity for me, but I'm yes, turning away from it. This is not like supposed to be a criticism of atheism or anything like that, far from it. I am an agnostic atheist pretty much. I mean, it depends on your definition of God, obviously, and so on, but most ideas of God are not really convincing to me. But no, it was to me more this idea of the absent father always watching over me and still laying pressure on me even though he's not really there. And that's what religion, or at least the religion I was brought up in, Catholicism, conveyed to me, that there's like this father who's always watching everything but who is never really there. And it's quite a scary feeling. It's like Michel Foucault wrote about it, the panopticon and so on. You are always watched, but you're not watched by anybody really. It's just this constant state of feeling watched without being watched or without being sure that you are watched. And yes, again, this emptiness goes on and on. By accident I found this balloon and I didn't even know how to end this shot. I had like no plan how this shot would work out or if it would work out. So this is like pure improvised poetry, and I love this shot of the balloon there, and I'm just sitting down filming like the buses move by and filming like this balloon on the ground. I think that's a very poetic shot actually, and it was like completely improvised. So yes, I'm quite happy with this entire shot. It's very long, but it looks extremely dirty, but there's a kind of visual poetry to it that I'm actually really proud of, I have to say. Now we have a shot that shows like the sunrise, and this is actually color graded to be like more kitsch. You know, we now have to have this really obvious kitsch ending where I'm like sad and I'm in the shower and we have like the sunrise and all of that. Now we will have like of course another film reference to both M and Joker, where I'm like forcefully pulling like my mouth down like in M and so on. Yeah, then another transition to like the skull there, and now my final closing statement. And this is actually a scene that I also don't really like. I mean, because this is like those videos that we know from all those YouTubers who have said something stupid, done something stupid or something like that, and then they shoot like this video where they are like sitting there and crying and like being really serious and honest and so on, and are trying to, you know, apologize to everyone, and they are saying that they now see how bad they behaved in the past, but they are trying really hard now to be honest and so on. But the fact alone that you're making this video is like, to me, such a strange thing, and every apology that you can give on such a video is a kind of a it's kind of strange to me. I'm not saying that it's dishonest, but it's you're getting into a space that really is hyper real in the Jean Baudrillard sense of the word. So I'm not sure how an apology could even work in such a space, in such a heightened reality like that. And so I made 2 shots of the scene, and in the first one I really tried to play it realistically. And then in this second one that I actually used, I tried to overact it. And well, I think it's not bad. I think that's not a bad performance because it is so overacted. But yeah, it just works with the entire heightened reality of the film. But of course, I could not end it there. I have to break the entire illusion of film again and again and again, because that's what postmodernism is. It's like a constant escape into reality, which means that you will never reach reality, because you're constantly escaping. You're never really getting to reality. So yeah, it's supposed to symbolize that I'm now waiting to be arrested for shooting at this girl or something like that. And yeah, it's obviously another incredibly melodramatic scene with like music from Raging Bull over it, and it's in slow motion, and I'm waiting for the police to arrive and all of that. Of course, I have to get a freeze frame and everything. I'm smoking still because I want to be cool and so on. And now there will be like a text that will be conveyed in German into the frame, and that's of course written in the reality of this film by the sister of Alan Smithy, Mary Smithy. And yeah, it just says that I was arrested, but not because I attacked anybody, but just because I behaved so stupidly in public and so on. And yes, which is conveying or hinting at the fact that I was not actually firing like a real gun at a human being, but that I was just like trolling this person using a fake gun and just behaving irresponsibly in public. And that I asked my sister to finish cutting the film, editing the film before I was arrested. But now we can already see that it's also another green screen shot, of course, because yes, as I've said, I just wanted to break down one cinematic reality layer after another. So I'm just moving destroying the green screen, and now we see another layer of reality, which is like this window that it's looking out. Maybe this is reality that we are seeing through this window. Finally, the illusion is broken and so on. We see a DVD of Pierrot le Fou down there in front of the window and bits of the green screen, and you can now see me moving through the streets and disappearing in the distance outside of the window, hinting at the possibility of me actually achieving some kind of stable reality that I can stay in. And there is actually an aperture outside of the window, above the window, where you can see now flowers and something like that falling from the sky and so on. I constructed this with like a ladder and a mechanism, and my mother was actually standing on the balcony beside this window and was pulling like on this construction so that the flowers could fall from the sky and so on, and was like watching me running around on like the street there with cars driving by. And yes, this movie was of course also meant to go on for a long time, and the audience is supposed to meditate on the meaning of reality in film and all of that, and it has to be like this grand metaphorical shot and all of this. And that's also beautiful, but could be as fake as anything else. And of course the camera has to remain inside this frame. It's also a 4:3 aspect ratio of the window, which is also of course the classical Academy format that movies have or had normally. So yes, there's of course also some symbolism in that and so on. And now in the ending, this image will also break because the battery of the camera is empty, and that's the only time when you actually see my real name, which is of course not Alan Smithy, and it's like superimposed over the sign of an empty battery. And maybe that's, it's just another layer of cinematic reality breaking down, and just a last fuck you to the audience.